the end of West F Street in the early 1950s, before they started pumping 93% of its incoming fresh water to the Central Valley and Southern California. Carquinez Strait was clear enough that you could see bait fish swimming in it. Now the water is so silty you can't see your finger 3 inches below the surface. My mom fished for striped bass from a wooden pier below the concrete wall at the northwest corner of the street. Suisun Bay used to be a breeding area for sturgeon and striped bass, but it's so saline now the bass aren't reproducing. Recent surveys find 3 to 5 juvenile bass in 1,000, where a healthy index would be 500 to 600 juveniles per 1,000. The homes on Simple King Street below West 2nd and G Streets are built on fill dirt atop the mudflats where my mom fished. So are the homes in Rancho Benicia and Point Benicia. Air pollution from the oil refineries in Rodeo and Martinez and the C&H sugar plant in Crockett made it hard to breathe when we played touch football. Some people complain about EPA regulations, but they've increased our air quality greatly. One year the fishermen found a last haul of sardines and they ran the cannery for the last time. My mom took us down to watch the lines operate that night. My family was one of 6 Chinese families living in Benicia, which had a population of 7,000 people then. We rented a house for my Auntie May, who also lived on the property. The Tom and G families ran Chinese restaurants, the Kwans operated a grocery store, and the Hongs owned a laundry. My Uncle Paul worked at the Benicia Arsenal, and my father David worked at Mare Island Naval Shipyard in Vallejo. My parents spoke English and Cantonese in our home until I went to Benicia Primary School on East 3rd Street between J and K Streets. Kindergarten was held in a building in the park where the firehouse now stands. My parents stopped speaking Cantonese at home to help my brother and me adjust to American culture. There was a Benicia Vallejo Chinese club that got together monthly for poker and mahjong games. They still exist and are still a social organization. We kids would play while our parents gambled and socialized. The club sponsored Chinese language classes, but the lessons never stuck. Our cousins who lived in Daifao, which is San Francisco, had the opportunity to speak Chinese on a daily basis. We drove down to San Francisco about once a month to visit our cousins on the old highway, which is now San Pablo Avenue. Chinese living outside of San Francisco were uncommon and isolated. Cal Yi Farms still sells dried fruit in Fairfield. One time we put our car on the ferry to Martinez and drove to a Chinese friend's egg ranch in Pleasant Hill. Our friend showed us some peanut-shaped eggs that young hens produce when they first start laying. I remember him catching a fryer, running it through a plucking machine, and cooking it for our dinner. I'm the only former 1950s resident of West F Street I know of who still lives in Benicia, although I moved away for 31 years, returning in 1987. Almost all the old folks have passed away. My mom Doris lives in the Simi Valley. My oldest cousin Barbara passed away in 2007. I still keep in touch with childhood friend Beth Nielsen, that's her maiden name, Cullum, who tells me Diane Williams, her maiden name, Applegate, another childhood playmate from West F Street, passed away last year too. Beth's brother Duane passed away more than a decade ago. Benicia has changed, but not that much since 1950. The 3 empty lots that stood at the corner of First Street and F Street are filled in. An exercise company occupies the former Benicia Vallejo bus building on the remaining corner. The old Bank of America building that stands opposite the state capitol houses a Mexican restaurant. The old Safeway building on First and H Streets houses a home improvement company. The 2 oldest privately operated businesses in town have closed since I moved back. El Caballero's barbershop is now Change's hairstyling salon, and Otis Hines' shoe repair shop is a new business named Otis's.